Welcome to This Week in Perfect Team, the show that provides instant community feedback on all new content releases. And we just got our very first release of PT21, and it's, only 39 cards long. I'm your host, DRC. And with me, as always, is your kidneys. How we doing tonight, kidneys? And are you ready for what's going down right now?
We have some amazing stuff planned for you guys tonight. I am so excited. We got all the hype in the chat, all the people around here. I'm feeling fresh. We just got so much planned for you. DRC and I have worked on this for ages to bring this show to you guys, and we have an amazing show planned tonight. And Chris dropped some great cards, and we're gonna go through them.
Yeah, we have got a metric ton of stuff to go over with you guys. We have got an incredible show planned for you. But first things first, bottom of the sixth, noticing that someone needs a haircut, and I've been meaning to get around to it. Hopefully this is the week. Sorry for being a little bit longer than you're used to here. We'll make sure we get that done. But let's all call out all of the love that we are receiving in the chat. If you were subscribed to us before, it's likely that subscription has lapsed because it's been a good couple months since you've seen us, and seeing so many people jump back in on the wagon and gifting that opportunity to others, including OTP Meme Lord, Crash SF Giants, MacJax, Dishnet, Dynamic 42, wait till next year, gifting out a bunch of them. Sean, Pax, Lair, just really appreciate all the support. We love you guys, and we wouldn't do this without you. So let's talk about the show that we have tonight. And again, we couldn't be more excited for it, as Base Bill subscribes as well. So let's look at what's on tap. We're doing a card rundown. So we're going to do the 30 live SCs. We're going to look at the 9 toppers, and we're going to tell you what we think about them. And then we've got a brand new format for OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. So if you were with us last year, what we did is we would show our dear friend here, Your Kidneys, something from the 90s, and he would have to identify it. And then he would hit us with a meme from today that didn't make any sense, and we'd try to put that together. Well, that well has run dry. And so now we've got a new format for you, and it's basically a rap battle without any rap. I will be representing the 90s, Kidneys will be representing the 2010s, and we will be defending the honor of something from that decade. Tonight's topic is baseball movies, and I can't wait till we get there, so you definitely don't want to miss that. And then we've got a huge reveal tonight. We've got a really juicy and huge reveal, and you definitely don't want to miss that either, so make sure you stick around through OK Boomer and OK Zoomer. And then another thing we're doing tonight, it's not on the slide deck here, but we are doing 30,000 perfect points giveaways tonight. But we're not doing it as we normally do. We used to just pick 3 random people who sign up for the drawing, and they win 10,000 perfect points each. Tonight, we are doing one drawing in that way. So if you just want to sit back and sign up for a drawing, you can potentially win one allotment of 10,000 perfect points. But we're going to have a scavenger hunt. So at unannounced times during this broadcast, you will have an opportunity to answer a trivia question. And whoever is first on my side here, first in the chat with the right answer, will be the winner of those 10,000 perfect points. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to have the internet at your disposal if you can. All right, so real quick before we jump into the cards, broadcast schedule. So we are going to do this every Thursday of the game cycle. If you're seeing us for the very first time now, you can get used to us being here. Chris drops content, and then we talk about it right afterwards. We tell you how those cards are going to play. We tell you which ones to target. We tell you which ones will fit into which particular tournament types or league types, or how far certain cards will tell you or will be able to take you. So you definitely don't want to miss this show. And then on Sundays, I broadcast the Perfect League World Series. This coming Sunday will be the last form of that stream in its current form, which is for PT21, and then we will fire that baby up for PT22 in June. But in the interim, we will be using this time slot to be looking at early meta trends for PT22. So Sunday night, we will see you then, and right after me, Dishnet goes on. All right, next, Discord. So one of the keys to succeeding in this game, if you are new, is to connect. It's to get into the Out of the Park Discord, get yourself into some private Discords, of which mine is an option. I'm going to link it in the chat right here. If you want to join, come on in, enter the conversation, join the conversation, give us feedback on the shows. Would love to continue the conversation there. All right, it is time to get started. We have got our first card here, and it is Brooks Robinson. So first questions first. Is this Chris throwing a little shade at the Orioles franchise here? There is one franchise that got less than a gold as its live SE reward. What's your take on that, Kidneys?
As a Red Sox fan, I can confidently say the Orioles suck. More realistically, I think, come at me, JMO, later. I can say that it's probably just with quantity and quality of players are a little down, so the mission will be easier. But, however, Orioles are bad.
All right, well, the Orioles may be bad, but this card might not be bad. So let's talk about how we're going to review cards. Again, I'm expecting that we've got a good number of people watching tonight for the first time. They've never seen this program before. They don't know what we're showing them. So for this first card here, let's dive in. And I'll start with the similarity scores. So on the left side of your screen, you see what Chris just showed you. You see the back of the card ratings, you see the card art, you see the card name. But on the right side, you see what looks like a little Excel spreadsheet here. And that's exactly what it is. It's extracted from an Excel spreadsheet. And what this is this is showing you within a similarity score table who the most similar cards to this card are like in the Perfect Team universe. And we will show you this information based on the overall ratings, based on the versus left ratings, and based on the versus right ratings. Now, if you were with us last year, you're used to that. This is all review. But this year, we've got a little bit more granularity for you. So look at this little blue text at the top of the box. Last year, we just showed you any old similar card. This year, we are getting granular. We are showing you just the precious metal form of it. So this is a silver card. We're going to compare this just against silver cards, as that's going to be most helpful towards assessing whether or not it's going to fit into the silver tournament meta. We're also not going to be comparing left-handed batters to right-handed batters anymore. So we are looking at just silver, just right-handed batters, and then we're also going to do it by position. So we are looking at just silver, right-handed corner infield options. And so that's what formulates your similarity score table here. And then you can look at the names and the card values and numbers within the table to formulate some additional conclusions there. And we'll do the same with infield defense down in the bottom middle of your screen here. So that's how the similarity scores is going to work. Now let's talk about backup card ratings. Again, Kidneys, we've got people watching this show that it could very well be the first time they've seen a Perfect Team card. And right now they just see a bunch of colors and a bunch of category names. So why don't you help our watchers, our viewers tonight understand a little bit about how to contextualize what they're seeing on the back of a card.
All right, I'm going to go down the list, and then I'm going to end with contact. I'll come back to it. So we got gap power. Gap power is how often your single turns into a double. Power is just how often you hit a home run. I is how often you walk. Avoid Ks is actually how often you don't strike out. That's not I. So avoid Ks lets you put the ball in play. It's very important. One of the most important ratings. Speed is how often you attempt the stolen base or to go for an extra base. Then stealing and base running are those success rates. Sacrifice, bunt, and bunt are pretty self-explanatory. And then we come to the infield ratings. So last year, infield range was the king. It was absolutely better than everything else, and you just wanted high-range cards around your team, except third base. Arm was pretty important. But now, range has been nerfed in this cycle, and so it's pretty much been brought on par, or not on par, but still lowered down to kind of be more equivalent to the other ratings. So we have infield range, we have infield error, arm, and turn double play. Error is how often you won't make errors. Range is how often you get to the ball, so that's still really important. Arm is how fast you throw people out, and turn double play is how successful, I believe, you start a double play. And then we go back to contact. So contact is actually a combination of three things. It's power, avoid Ks, and a hidden rating called BABIP. Everyone can spam the beautiful emotes in the chat. So BABIP, what it is batting average on balls in play. It's very simple. It's just if you make contact with the ball, it's how often it plays. It actually goes for a hit. So that's pretty much the breakdown of what a perfect team card looks like for a hitter.
Yeah, so thinking of real baseball to contextualize what BABIP is, like think of a lefty with no speed constantly hitting into the shift, they're going to have a very low BABIP because when the ball doesn't go over the fence and they make contact, it doesn't land for base hits very frequently. Kyle Schwarber's a good example of this. Whereas a high BABIP card might be a card that hits on a more balanced profile in terms of being a spray hitter, hitting with line drives, and having speed to be able to beat out some infield hits. You know, that could be a consistently high BABIP player, and that's for real baseball here, and that mirrors itself well into the perfect team engine here. And so as we look at power hitters, oftentimes we're having to think of how well their BABIP or how poorly their BABIP is going to help them or assist them. So hopefully we got a lot of questions answered there. But if we didn't, feel free to ask any in the chat and we'll try to get around to it at some point. But first, let's look at this card. So we're not here to explain the game to you. We're here to explain the cards to you. And this is an interesting card here. So I think it's a solid silver, you know, looks like one that resembles some of the cards that were played at third base in PT21. And across the board, it looks like a lot of the PT22 ratings are down. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is a card that you're excited about throwing into your lineup and playing at third base. Definitely on that versus left profile here, you're going to have better results. A, because the ratings are better, and B, and this is an important thing for new players to understand, the pitchers are going to have worse backup card ratings when they're facing him, if they're left-handed versus if they're right-handed. A right-handed pitcher facing Brooks is going to have a same-sided handedness advantage, whereas a left-handed pitcher is going to have an opposite side, a handedness disadvantage. So you need to look at it from both perspectives. Which one is better in a vacuum on the back of this card, which is versus left, and then which one is better when considering the context of who they're going to be facing. And there's an example of one that works against the grain later on in the stream, and we'll talk about it then. But Kidneys, enough out of me. What do you think about this Brooks Robinson card?
I think it's really good. I think the similarity, the upgraded similarity score we have for this Eddie Kazak card is dead on, and it's almost identical to the Eddie Kazak card, except Eddie Kazak can't play defense at all. So this card is just Artie, who's been a very good hitter in perfect team history. Eddie Kazak is just that card, but with good defense, and I think it's fantastic. I think this will definitely see play at third base in silver tournaments with some of the changes around to the meta, so I love it.
So are you saying that this card is in meta for you right now?
This would be in the meta.
Attention, it's meta.
Sorry, I had to use the opportunity to use our new animation for meta. I know you can't hear that, but the rest of everyone else can. All right, awesome. Beautiful. So next we've got our first big reveal of the evening. And that is something called the Bendex. Ben, why don't you take the opportunity to tell us what the Bendex is and why they should care about it?
So the Bendex is what we're debuting tonight. The Bendex is going to be my personal overall rating of a card. Now you're looking at this and you're saying, you just said this card was good. Why is it a 58? The Bendex runs a little lower right now because it's scaled off, I think, how cards could potentially be in the game. So it's a little low, but this is still a good card for a silver third baseman. And it's based on a whole bunch of back card stuff I've done, a whole bunch of analysis I've been doing. If you didn't get that before, hi, my name is Ben. Yeah, so this card grades out at a 58. You're going to see this a lot tonight. Note, for hitters, it is only the hitting ratings that are rated. It is not defense, so that kind of hurts this card a little bit. And for pitchers, it will be the overall pitching performance. So you're going to see this a lot. And yes, Pidge, you do not love the Bendex. I know I dropped you a little teaser earlier. If you guys are really curious about this, I've been telling people all week, stay tuned to the end of the stream. The big reveal is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and so the reason that the Bendex is important is because the backup card rating, this 79 right here, is not always representative of how much value you can get out of a card or what you can expect from an offensive performance perspective. And so what the Bendex is doing is it's using an algorithm to compute first how much production you can expect, and then to scale that into a single number. And so as you look at a 65 on the Bendex, you can be very confident that's going to be a significantly better hitter than a 58. Whereas for the raw, out of the park, perfect team 22 backup card numbers, That's not always the case. And so that's why the Bendex exists. That's why the Bendex is extremely helpful. That's why I recommend you guys pay close attention to it when we have all new card releases going forward. All right, next card. Vernon Wells. And all of my notes were out of order, so now I'm going to have to hunt and peck for what I have here. But
mine too, buddy.
This card is a very balanced card. You see a lot of green here. Now, I'd prefer some more green on contact, maybe a little bit less on power for some of the reasons that we just talked about there. And also, this is a center field card with only 66 range. And for anyone who's been living under a rock, positional training is not a thing anymore, insofar as you can't fully train what you could expect from the combination of defensive ratings. And so it's not really nearly as viable as it was in PT21. So with only 66 range and only a 40 rating in center field, without a wildly standout bat profile, I don't think this card is going to be one that people need to be feverishly targeting and placing in their lineup. What do you think?
Absolutely agree. I think the defense is definitely too low, especially with only center field stock rating here. I believe he probably trains up at a corner, but if I remember Vernon Wells accurately. However, the bat just simply isn't good enough, in my opinion, for a gold card if we're looking at a DH perspective. I think some of the cards we saw that we're going to get to a little bit later in the show, the Kent Urbeck, the Ty Cobb, the Minnie Manuso are all far better gold hitters. So I just think this card gets a little bit overshadowed by those.
So this one comes in with a Bendex rating of 63. So as we're comparing it to the last card, it was a 58. So we're now 5 points higher, and we'll keep tracking the Bendex as we keep going. But next we've got Babe Ruth, a Babe that pitches. We waited on bated breath for the Babe that pitches all year long last year. But we've got it day one this year, and we've got an interesting profile here. Not only is this a two-way card, you can see the batting ratings tucked away in the bottom right-hand part of your screen here. We'll need to, once someone has this in inventory, know what the avoid Ks are so that we can have a better idea of how well this card's going to hit. But this is a movement-heavy profile, and something that I know you're going to talk about here in a second, to go along with having 111 stamina. Now, I don't remember what our high watermark was for stamina in PT21, but I feel like this is right in the neighborhood of it. What do you think of Babe?
I think he's just a little bit understated overall. I think the interesting thing about this card, we'll talk about the stamina first. If you have been paying attention, maybe you've been playing the beta along with ourselves. 111 stamina seems to be the new benchmark. It's the highest in the game, but it also seems to be the new benchmark for those dead ball pitchers that pitched a ton of innings. So we've seen a lot more diversity in stamina these days. I'm going to answer a question I saw earlier in the chat because it was a really good question. What's the range for Bendex? So for hitters, we saw from tonight, we're going to see from 53 all the way up to 77. And then for pitchers, we're going to see from 56 to 90. So this card is somewhere in the middle there. It clocks in with decent movement. I'm going to talk a lot tonight about movement because to me, this game feels like a throwback to Perfect Team 20 and to a lot of the high movement ratings. So back in Perfect Team 20, there was something thrown around a lot that you would use to evaluate pitchers. You multiply the stuff, the movement and control, by 1, 2.4, and 1.5, and that's how you evaluate a pitcher. And I'm going to be using that a lot tonight, and you'll see why later, because I have some really cool stats for it. But this clocks in at a 72 as a pitcher, and then it clocks in as a hitter, it clocks in at a 54. So not the greatest hitter, a decent pitcher, and somebody, maybe you play in a cap tournament, like a gold cap tournament, something like that, but probably not going to be played directly in gold tournaments.
So going back to that thing, what you just mentioned there. So if you play in a cap tournament, why don't you Eli 5 why this card would make sense in a cap tournament for someone, maybe explain what a cap tournament is, and then how a two-way card like this can be deployed to make this hitting rating, which you're calling a 50s Bendex here, viable.
So I think in a cap tournament, the reason why it would be viable is because you get a pitcher and a hitter for only the cost of 83 points, which is extremely efficient if you're trying to fill in slots on your team. So would this be considered like the Bronze Newcomb? No, it's not the Bronze Newcomb. It needs some more BABIP for that one. But so even though it's not a great hitter, overall, it's still going to be really highly valued because you're essentially getting a hitter and a pitcher for about 41 points each, which is just really good.
Yeah, and to let anyone know who's hearing about cap tournaments for the first time, oftentimes the strategy or the meta that emerges from building those cap tournament rosters is to have your players that you're actually going to be playing mixed with the lowest possible cards you can have, some 40 rated cards, because you're working with essentially a salary cap where you have to make sure the entire 26-man roster is beneath a certain threshold. And so a card like this that can pull double duty can mask some of the deficiencies that you have to roster by having those 40 cards. All right, so that's Babe Ruth, 72 on the Bendex. Next, we've got Chris Archer here. Let me find my notes for Mr. Archer. Assuming I took notes. There it is. Okay, so this is the first card where I really felt like we're missing the stuff boost. This is a card with 3 high pitch values, with velocity at the top end of the spectrum, with some stuff at the 100 threshold that would have in PT21 jumped up another 15, maybe even more, maybe even 20. And not getting the stuff boost in this game, I feel has a huge impact on this, whereas it goes from potentially being a card that you could throw into your bullpen and then rely on it striking out around its walks and striking out around its movement challenges, which when you're deficient on movement, that means your opponents are going to be hitting some home runs off of you. But without it, I just don't think that this Archer card is going to be able to hang around. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the main issue with it, is movement too low to compensate for having such low control in the stuff. It is a fly ball pitcher, which is nice, but just overall kind of on the understated side. You can see a lot of its comparisons are to live cards, which is not really the best thing to have because live cards are generally understated. I love Chris Archer. I think he's a great pitcher, and I love this card art. The special edition on the 2010 cards is really cool, so I'm digging that. But not much else for me doing it. So.
Moving on, we've got Jorge Posada, a switch hitter, and I love me some switch hitters. In the similarity score table here, we are comparing him against all types of cards, so perfect cards, diamond cards, gold cards, everything in there, because once we get to the diamond level, we're really looking at how well they can play in a main league, how well they can play in a setting with all of the given cards, and so that's why we have that chosen there. And then we don't have a lefty or righty or switch hitter chosen, just to have a large enough sample size to compare him against all of the catchers within the known universe as it sits today. And I think my main issue with Jorge Posada here is the low catcher ability. And for anyone listening right now that is new to the game or new to the relevance of catcher ability, first off, check out Sergeant Mushroom, as I know he has made it his personal crusade to talk about defense. I think catcher ability being one of them. But just know that catcher ability has a direct impact on how well your pitchers do, has a direct impact on their ERA, and subsequently there's a statistic called catcher ERA that is assigned to catchers, and you'll see the net impact there. And a catcher with the ability this low had better be just hitting the cover off the ball to make up for what that's going to do to your pitchers. I think of King Kelly in early meta in PT21, but I don't see that type of bat for Jorge Posada here. What do you think?
I agree. I think Roscoe has a good point that on lower levels most people want offense, but I will counter it with that catcher. It affects catcher ERA, but what it's deeper affecting is those K rates and those walk rates directly, right? And so if you're trying to generate points in early game, you can do it a lot with really high stuff starting pitchers. So I think actually having the high catcher ability catchers, even if you're sacrificing the bat, might actually be a benefit. So I'm really against this card. I know it's got a 65, which isn't horrible, but again, that's not factoring in defense. If I was factoring defense, I would take off a lot of points right now. I don't think its bat is anywhere near good enough to make up for the low defense on it.
I think it behooves us to share that the eventual meta that
Attention,
appeared
it's
in
meta.
PT21 was to do just what you suggested, completely ignoring for the most part the production from the bat in exchange for elite catcher ability, in exchange for elite catcher arm. In PT21, at the highest levels, you had Joe Mauer, Roy Campanella, and Ivan Rodriguez. And by the end of it, you had most teams choosing to go double glove with Campanella and Pudge, leaving Joe Mauer's league average bat versus right-handed pitching, which is the majority of at bats, on the reserves and going with the defensive approach. We will see if PT22 ends up in that same camp, but it's not a bad thing to have on your radar as we get started here. Next, we've got Kevin Seitzer, an 80 rated card with the Kansas City Royals here. I think this was like a king, why not a 79 card when I saw this. You've got a nice little contact profile here. You've got a versatile set of stock position ratings here where he's not good at third. He's not really good at first, but he's in that acceptable range. If this card could sneak down into silver, it'd have a lot more utility than as a gold as it sits here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this card is right. It's right on the border of that. It's not a terrible bat. I think there's better, and it doesn't really play defense for you. It probably plays at first base okay. Maybe it's playable in a platoon at first base. Gold is probably the only tournament I didn't really explore last year, and I'm going to explore it a lot this year. I'm really excited to play some gold. But I think compared to cards like the Kent Urbeck or even the Mark Grace, I would rather play those cards than this card at first base.
This just in, Kidneys. This stream is registering a -4 on the Chris Dex, we have been informed, so we'll need to amp it up a little bit here. And then look at you. How are you gifting subs while we're doing this? I feel like I'm keeping a spaceship in air here, and you're over here doing side tasks. What's going on there?
Dude, somebody tried to use an emote, and he didn't have it, so I decided to give it to him.
Wow. Generous Ben. All right, moving on. We've got Lou Whitaker, 80 rated card for the Detroit Lions. What sport are we even talking about here? For the Detroit Tigers. I think what I'm doing is I'm trying to kill time as I find the notes on paper, as they're all entirely out of order. But I'm failing horrifically here. But anyways, we've got a platoon middle infielder here. And the versus right profile is not atrocious. You got decent contact here. You've got decent avoid Ks. But I feel like it's not a huge bat, definitely. And then from a defensive perspective, we've talked about how range was king in PT21. And even though we have had some game engine tweaks from 21 to 22, I still expect range to matter. And 66 is not very much. So I feel like there likely are cards already within our existing card base that are going to give you a better glove. And I don't expect Whitaker to hit so much to inspire you to move away from that type of card.
Right, so we're talking about range nerf a lot. I do want to clarify, range is still probably the single best defensive stat. It's just not absurdly better like it was before. I do think this card is just kind of bad overall. I don't even know if I'd play it in the silver tournament. It's just really weak defensively, and the bat doesn't back it up either. So very low Bendex rating for this card, and just overall not too happy with it.
Bendex of 58, which, did you say that was your low watermark? I can't recall.
The low watermark is going to be a 53 tonight.
Ooh, okay. We'll keep working our way there. So next we've got Kent Herbeck. Although I've heard you go with a soft H a couple of different times, going with the old Kent
I wasn't
Herbeck.
alive. I wasn't born when he was playing, so I don't know. You tell me.
So this is Kent Herbeck, and he was a real sneaky little player for the Twins, a great player. You see from his card here that he was a pretty powerful bat versus right-hand pitching, played first base, and I recall one of the things that he used to do. So he played first base, and so you're holding runners on at first base all the time. And what he would try to do is he would try to use a little force, use a little elbow grease when he would apply the tag to base runners to nudge that hand off the bag ever so slightly and get the umpire not to be too keen to it and let him ring up that runner. In fact, I've got an example for you guys tonight. It happened in a World Series. Didn't happen on a pickoff play, but it happened nonetheless, and was one of the plays that Herbeck really was most known for by the time his career was done. This was called the T-Rex tag. Check this out. So Ron Gant gets back, and Herbeck just ever so gently lifts up his leg, gets the tag, gets the call, ends the inning. Real heads-up play there. And this is a game that the Braves ended up losing by 1 run. Whoops. Did I do that?
He's a big boy. Oh my gosh, that's so bad.
Ever so gently, just little elbow grease. Maybe we're going to lift with the leg. We're just going to take this right off of here. Get Ron Gant, who was one of my favorite players growing up. Get Ron Gant off the bag. Get him tagged out. And so this is a fun little player, fun for me. As far as how he's going to play in perfect team, I think versus right, he's definitely got some viability. What do you think?
Yeah, I certainly view right. I think somebody put it the best in the chat. I think it was Dogberry saying we found the E in his name. It's in his V right profile. He's got a beautiful bat that sort of resembles Yogi Berra from last year, V right.
Good call.
And first base defense isn't the best thing, but man, does this card mash righties as a gold card. I love it.
Yeah, and this card might be one that if we are making power great again in PT22, the Yogi profile could be one that plays even better this time around. This is the type of card where I would get excited about it on a stream last year, and then you would say, oh, DRC, you're just getting excited about blue colors here. The power is too high. The BABIP's going to be bad, and then the card's going to be bad. But I think that this game, I want to give this one a try.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is something you certainly roll out in your gold tournaments. You could roll it out probably early meta at first base, no problem.
We move on to Mini Minoso. White Sox Live SE reward, and you are getting a ton with this Mini Minoso card. You are getting viable defense, both in the outfield and infield. So you have both corners and third base. Not great at any of those spots, but viable there. Certainly could back up there, could even start there, depending on who you're considering playing him over. And then from a bat perspective, he's a right-handed hitter with better stats versus right-hand pitching, which is going to make his numbers net out to being closer to neutral handedness, but the majority of plate appearances are versus right-hand pitching, so that will certainly serve him well and could potentially graduate him from being a short side platoon bat to being someone who could arguably get some full-time work. What's your take on Mini Minoso?
We love this card. Absolutely love this card VR. He's flexible. He plays around, so he's going to be good as a backup in a tournament. But I think he's even DH level in a gold tournament if you wish to go that route. I think this card is fantastic. The BABIP on it's really high. It clocks in at an 81, which is about our 4th best tonight. And just overall, this card absolutely slaps right-handed pitching. He's going to be a doubles machine in this game. The Bendex, if you could put it up on the screen, he clocks in at almost a 73. And just absolute monster. I mean, I told you guys the highest hitter we have tonight is a 77. And so 73 for Mini Minoso. I love this card. I think he's fantastic.
Attention, it's meta.
Attention, this one is meta. We're calling it here, Mini Minoso, and someone called out in the chat here, not a bad base runner as well. So 73 on the speed, 74 on the stealing. Did you go through what's the difference between speed and stealing before? I don't know. I might have missed that.
I did. So I'll go through it again just real quick. Speed is how often you attempt the extra base or the stolen base. Stealing is your success rate on stolen bases, and base running is your success rate on base running. Stealing or speed also impacts triples. It's how often you go from a double to triple as well.
All right, perfect. Moving on from Mini Minoso, we've got Grady Sizemore, one of the more dynamic players in his era. Injuries prevented him from being perhaps what he was destined for. But one thing that with this card here is you see the gap power which jumps off the page, and I would caution from getting too enamored with that or being distracted by gap power. It is by far the least impactful of all of the batting backup card stats, and what it's really doing here is offering some deodorant for a contact profile for a diamond card that's just in the 70s, 62 versus left, and then an avoid K profile that's also on the weekend. So I don't really know that this card's going to hit a ton there, despite that gap power trying to trick you into believing that. And then defensively, it's nice to have stock at all of our 3 positions here, stock defense, so you can deploy him out there and not be just an absolute disaster. But it's only supported by a 70 range. So similar to how we don't want to be tricked by a high gap power, we don't want to be tricked by a high outfield error rating, especially for a card that's going to be in the outfield when errors are not so plentiful anyway. So what do you see with Grady Sizemore?
Not a lot. I love Grady Sizemore. He's one of my favorite players growing up. The potential this guy had as an outfielder was fantastic, but honestly, the bat isn't this there. We got kind of a hidden bird profile with the gap power sticking out there a little bit, little 2 fingers. But the range, like you said, not really going to cut in the outfield, and I just think the contact and the avoid Ks are too low combined for this card to really consistently hit the ball.
Bendex of 64 on this one. I think you can find better options in your main league as well as in your diamond tournaments. Moving on, we've got Rusty Greer. Texas Rangers 82 card. And a platoon bat here for sure. You're going to want to put him out there versus right-hand pitching in your versus right-hand pitching starting lineup and not in your versus left-hand pitching. But how good is the batting profile? We're starting with 85 contact versus right. We've got an acceptable 70 avoid Ks. But for this defensive profile, which Chris was so nice to call out the 1 rating in center field, which comes with it a very weak left field profile as well, is Rusty going to hit enough for us to play him?
I don't think so, because we compare this card, it's never going to play in the field, right? I mean, you throw it in center field if you're Free Dave Brown playing the tank my defense team. And that's about it, which is surprising, because if you remember that card that had 1 infield error that never made an error the entire season for him, that was great. I love that.
That was wild.
But Rusty Greer, if we're just comparing it straight up to a card like Mini Manuso we saw earlier, Mini Manuso is just a better V-right bat, and you're not playing him in the field anyway. So I think this card just falls off a little bit. I think it's kind of on the edge of being really good, but I'd like just to see a little bit more batting prowess from this one.
Absolutely, and everything is a balancing act. You've heard me mention a couple of different times, is it going to hit enough to counteract the defensive profile? There's many different types of cards in Perfect Team. There are balanced cards that are not going to hurt you with the glove, not going to hurt you with the bat. There are hitters who are going to mash, but who are not going to help you with the glove. And then there's players that are glove dominant that aren't going to hit, but the defense is such that you want them out there. One of the cards that people sought after most in PT21 was a card by the name of Mark Belanger, which was an elite defensive shortstop and an absolute train wreck and nightmare with the bat. We're talking about batting averages in the 100s, OPSs south of 600. But he was still a meta card because that defensive profile made it worthwhile. So we're not just here trying to find the team that's going to hit the most bombs. We're not just here trying to find the team that's going to win all the gold gloves, but we are trying to balance and build a team that's going to be able to score enough runs and be able to pick it as well. Next, we've got Tino Martinez. Definitely a player that I watched a ton growing up, both for his Mariners time as well as his Yankees time. And he here is representing the Mariners. And what's interesting here is we've got a reverse split action going on here. So what we mean when I say that is that he's a left-handed hitter who has more power, more gap, roughly the same contact versus left-hand pitching, which is rare. But the other thing you notice is that this is a bird profile. And given that the order is out of order, we'll have to save the tutorial for later on in the stream. But this is a bird profile, and historically, in PT21, these did not perform well. Now, with Power's return to greatness, we will see how well they do this time around. But when you have a power-dominant profile, it's typically only successful at the lowest levels of the Perfect Team pyramid. What do you think of Tino?
Not great, Bob. This one is just kind of low overall. He's got definitely the bird profile going on here. Really, really low avoid Ks. I kind of said it earlier that it was important, but if you're newer, avoid Ks is not just how often you strike out. It is how often you make contact with the ball if you don't strike out. So it's really important to get those numbers up. And what this card is going to do is he's just going to strike out so much, he's not going to really hit anything like consistently at all. I mean, he'll hit some home runs because of the order of operations if he left. But outside of that, he'll play good defense, but it's first base, so it's kind of negligible.
59 on the Bendex. We move on and see Adam Kennedy. Now, this is a profile here that would have gotten people pretty excited in PT21. The low power, high contact, negligible eye could be a BABIP dream. What do you think of Adam Kennedy?
You know, his BABIP is good. It's tied for the highest we have tonight from hitters. The problem is 23i. I mean, 31 power. Sure, he's got BABIP, but and then the V left profile is a ton weaker than the V right. Defense is probably passable earlier in the game, not earlier. We are at the beginning of the game. Early in the game, but just overall, I'm not too high on the bat. I think it's just, like I keep saying, it's just a little understated for an 83 gold. He's got some good stuff like the base running and the defense, but maybe he plays at second base in a gold tournament a little bit, but I would probably think there's a better option.
I think the problem with this one is you're going to end up with a triple slash line that you don't love. You know, that batting average is going to be good. You know, this card could hit, I don't know, depending on what else is out there, could hit right around 300, but it's not going to walk much, which means the OBP is going to be right behind it at like 320. And then the slug is not going to be there because the power is down at 32. So you're talking about a triple slash line that could have both the OBP and the slugging south of 400 here, which is not going to sum up to much. That being said, you do have a pretty nice base running profile here. Decent speed, good stealing, good base running. And then to the point that you made, defensively, depending on what else is out there at second base, the 82 range could very well be playable early on. So this card is interesting to me. I'm not ready to slap the meta label on it, but interested to see more.
Yeah, I think certainly this card hits really well. In fact, it reminds me a lot of George Wright, except it doesn't have the avoid Ks, and it doesn't have the crazy defense George Wright had earlier on. So this is really close to being one of my favorite cards, but just falls a little short.
59 on the Bendex as we move on to Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb. This was a gigantic card in PT21, the very, very best card until Shoeless Joe Jackson came and stole that mantle in the 11th hour. But here we've got an 83 gold card that looks really darn good versus right. As an outfielder that you can platoon, maybe even just as a DH. You know, the right field rating of 40 here is not going to inspire a ton of confidence, only 51 range out there. But that versus right bat is absolutely going to mash. The avoid K is very high. He's not going to strike out a ton. The contact being what it is, contextualized with the power, is going to be a pretty decent BABIP on this, and even a pretty solid eye. What do you like about Mr. Cobb?
Pretty much everything except the defense. This card is absolutely slaps right-handed pitching. And this card, I think, is going to be a really good early DH option. I literally have this card as a gold 83 overall as my 11th best hitter in the game right now. He clocks in as the third best hitter tonight at a 73. I think this card might be so good you even just early on put him in right field just to get the bat in play.
Attention,
I
it's
think this
meta.
card is absolutely fantastic, and this is going to be a gold tournament staple for a very long time. So yes, I would call it meta.
Well, we have placed the prognosis that this is a meta card, and we move on to Moises Alou. My goodness, do I love me some Moises Alou. I love this card, but we'll get to that in just a second. But let's just appreciate Moises Alou, the player. I feel like he's someone who is wildly underrated. People don't realize that he was an outfielder who hit incredible for the vast majority of his career and played some center field. He doesn't have that statted on this card here, but he played center field as a primary center fielder for some really, really good Astros teams. I think that the question for this card here is just the impact of a short side platoon bat. So the versus right profile is okay. 88 on the contact, 78 on the avoid K. But as a right-hand hitter, he's going to be facing pitchers on their dominant side. He's absolutely going to mash versus left-hand pitching, which really is no different than what he was as a hitter in the league. Uh-oh. This is our first 10,000 perfect point scavenger hunt. It is for this Moises Alou card. Let's read what the trivia is. So Moises Alou in 1998 hit 38 homers right in the heart of that Houston Astros lineup. An OPS right around 1, right around 1,000. An incredible batter. I think he batted 5th in that lineup. That team won a bunch of games. But he was also in the lineup on May 6th of 1998 when Kerry Wood struck out 20 Houston Astros. What strikeout numbers were Moises Alou's 3 contributions of those 20 strikeouts? So as we let people sleuth that answer, first person in the chat. So EVC and NYC going 3rd, 7th, and 14th. That is incorrect. 8, 12, 17, 5, 8, 19. We are just shooting wildly here. Why don't you share your thoughts on Alou while we let people get their guesses in?
So we just saw Ty Cobb, right? Ty Cobb absolutely mashes right-handed pitching. Well, what does this card do? It absolutely mashes left-handed pitching. I think these cards are going to platoon for a very, very long time in gold, even in league play. I have this as the second highest rated left-handed hitter tonight, or versus left-handed hitter tonight. And he ranks 11 overall V left for me. This card absolutely destroys left-handed pitching as an 88 gold. So really impressive stuff from Moises Alou. I expect we'll be seeing a lot of them in the meta.
And I see some people very close, but no one has nailed it yet. We'll let people keep running on that for a second. Yeah, I think this card's going to hit. We've got a very strong Bendex on it of 68, and I think it's going to crush left-handed pitching for sure. Wait a minute, there it is. Mr. Devil Dog. Mr. Devil Dog is the first on my screen with it. He was the 5th strikeout of Kerry Wood, the 9th strikeout of Kerry Wood, and the 15th strikeout on Kerry Wood's journey to 20 strikeouts in the game. Mr. Devil Dog, DM me on Discord your perfect team username with the appropriate capitalization, and then you will have 10,000 perfect points waiting for you once available. So congrats to Mr. Devil Dog, and hopefully you guys enjoy this more unique way of awarding some perfect points here today.
Yo, shout out to JH Cardinals who guessed 5, 10, 15. Poor guy.
I know. I was starting to second guess myself. Like, wait a minute, 5, 10, 15. Did I count wrong?
Yep.
But he was right there. I think someone else was right there with him. All right. Yep. Moving on, we've got Mike Lowell. Ode to Yuka. I'm sure she's loving every bit of this, but it's a Mike Lowell Marlins card. I don't know if that takes off some of the edge for her here. And it's a card that's really going to struggle versus right-hand pitching, which is the majority of plate appearances in typical distribution. So that's really the fly in the ointment for this card. We like the versus left profile. It's interesting enough with green or with blue coloring in 3 areas that we like to see it, but the defense isn't great, and that VR profile is just really, really hideous to look at. What do you think of Lowell?
Again, it's a game of Perfect Team is a game of comparisons, and it's a game of what cards are you better than, what cards beat you, because if a card beats you in a category, well, you're not going to play in that category. So the problem with the Mike Lowell is we just saw the Moises Alou as we keep chaining cards together, and the Moises Alou just does this card job way better. This card's too weak to play at third base, and it doesn't hit lefties anywhere near the Moises Alou card. So unfortunate. Yuka's first love has been outclassed.
61 on the Bendex as we move on to Bobby Abreu, left-handed hitter who's looking pretty solid here versus right-hand pitching. 87 on the contact with a strong eye that's going to add to that OBP of 79 here. Power low, so it's going to help our BABIP some there. But the avoid Ks is a little bit down there. Now, are we into the toxic zone on the avoid Ks for Bobby Abreu?
So I'm going to go with no. And that's going to shock a lot of people. I agree. I think Bobby Abreu is a really underrated hitter. He's got some crazy stats. You can look him up. But this card clocks in 88 BABIP, which is fantastic. He's got good gap power, and he can walk as a BABIP hitter. Now, he's a DH option, and he's going to compete with the Ty Cobb. But I actually think this card is going to be decent competition because he's just going to get on base around the same. The issue is, he's going to hit for contact more than the Ty Cobb because of the K difference. The question is the K is too low for it to be viable? And honestly, right now with where we're sitting in the meta, I think this card could actually be pretty good. So I'm going to go with yes, this card plays, but specifically V right as a DH.
V right as a DH, you heard it here first. As we flash up the Bendex of 70 for Bobby Abreu and then move on to Denny Nagel. Now, Denny Nagel was a heck of a pitcher, as I exposed to you guys that this will be the second scavenger hunt of the evening. He was on some really great Braves teams. People often forget about him because he wasn't Glavine, Maddox, or Smoltz, but he was really darn good. In 1997, he had a sub-3 ERA season in a year in which he won 20 games. So just an absolute great pitcher. But my favorite Denny Nagel moment was a game that I went to. I watched the Cubs play the Braves, and during this game, Denny Nagel did not have it. Denny Nagel gave up a grand slam to a pitcher. Whoever can name that pitcher for me first in the chat will win the next allotment of 10,000 perfect points. It was not necessarily in 97. It was while he was a member of the Atlanta Braves, though. So Nagel as a Brave pitching against the Cubs, giving up a grand slam to a Cubs pitcher. And go. While they are hunting there, what do you think of Denny Nagel?
Fantastic gold card. Love this card. I think he's going to be our best gold option tonight for a pitcher. Just overall, this profile is really good. It's just really consistent, really solid. He's going to be really great against those early lefty cheese teams we're probably going to see come out of BFF and all the early players like they always do. And this card is going to he's really going to beat left-handed pitching. It's rare in this game, and it was rare in Perfect Team 20, that you see cards with such a high movement and control combo. And pretty much any time you see that on kind of a higher level card, it's going to be good, in my opinion.
Awesome. And we've got the Spam 02 winning this one with the first answer that I see there of having Kevin Tapani. So the Spam, if you can DM me on Discord with your perfect team username, correct capitalization, then you will be in line for the next allotment of 10,000 perfect points. Congratulations to you. All right, Bendex of 72 on Tapani, on Nagel as we move on to Lenny Dykstra. Lenny Dykstra. Now, we've got a center field card here in our first one that we've seen tonight with some good range on him. 86 range to be exact. Now, the first thing I did is I went to the available cards that we've seen so far and checked range, and this does pale significantly in comparison to a Christian Pache card out there that has over 100 range. So as we're talking about diamond center fielders that are going to be glove specialists, Pache is going to beat Dykstra by a good measure here. But that doesn't take away the fact that Dykstra is a platoon bat here with a great base running profile, going to steal a ton of bases, going to likely hit for a decent average and even walk a good bit here. Just I'm not sure that I'm not ready to say he's going to become the meta option center field.
So I don't think he's the meta option center field, certainly for league play when we have a card like Ned Hanlon out there. However, Diamond tournaments, this right now is the center fielder to get. Fantastic base running, solid defense, really good V right profile. I'm pretty high on the Lenny Dykstra. Also, we got the first nice Bendex of the year up there. So shout outs to you guys in the chat for seeing that one. And yeah, I think this is a great card. I think this is a card you're going to get this from your Live SC collection, and you're going to put him in center field because he's one of the better, cheaper options in the game.
And that's a good point you touch on there. If PT22 ends up being anything like PT21, the Live SE options are going to come to you a whole lot cheaper, a whole lot easier than the other cards out there. So maybe the Pache is going to be very high in cost. Maybe the 100 historical legend you just referenced will be way up there too. But Dykstra will be a way to get production out of center field and have someone out there that's not going to kill you defensively.
So excellent question from Zero in the chat. What makes a hitter a platoon hitter? So basically, when you look at the Dykstra, you see that his V right profile is way better than his V left. What that means is you're going to only want to play him versus right-handed pitching because he's going to do way better against it. He's also, I believe, a left-handed hitter. So against right-handed pitchers are normally worse against left-handed hitters. So you double down on those splits. So really important to platoon hitters with profiles like this.
Absolutely. And I think someone else made a good point in the chat that this is a 90 card. The Pache is a high 90s. And then the 100 you referenced is obviously a perfect card. So Dykstra, I need to check, but he could be meta for the low diamond tourneys that Chris has referenced. So that's something that we can check on and get back to you guys, as Pache and the 100 would not be eligible for that format. So this card could come back into play.
Absolutely, he's going to play in that format for sure.
Next, we've got Gio Gonzalez, a high movement, high stuff, low control, left-handed starting pitcher with traditional splits here, although they are somewhat muted. 6 more stuff on the versus left profile, 4 more movement on the versus left profile. What do you think of Gio?
You know, we're talking a lot about movement, or I've talked a lot about movement tonight and how I like movement, and I think it's really good. The issue is I don't think Gio has enough control to play. And it's not really, the other stats are very good, and I love Gio Gonzalez. I think he was a super underrated pitcher. However, I just think the control is a little bit too low. He's going to walk too many guys, and he's probably not good enough.
So if this control played, if you were playing Gio Gonzalez and getting away with it and living to fight another day, just know that your runway for that to continue is very likely limited. As the power creep for this cycle goes, things like having control below a certain threshold can be something that can counterfeit your card rather quickly. So you might see some decent early returns from Gio, but do not expect them to last.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I would say for sure.
Bendex on this one as 70 as we move on to Ken Griffey Jr., Cincinnati Reds Ken Griffey Jr. And this is where the bird tutorial lies, because this is absolutely a bird card. So what is a bird, you're asking? Well, let's take a look at these ratings. Let's look at how they look, power dominant profile, and then let's turn them on their side. Well, what does that look like? That looks like a bird. And so this profile has since been named the bird profile. And as you watch these streams, power dominant profiles are called bird profiles. That's what we mean when we talk about them. And the reason that we have designated them a unique name unto themselves is because this profile has struggled historically. We'll need to watch how well they embrace the return to power's greatness this year. But do not target a card simply because it's got an off the charts power rating. Your hitter still needs to hit the ball. They still need to get on base when they don't hit it over the fence. And if all they've got is power going for them, that's not going to happen very often.
Absolutely. You need, with the order of operations, so I touched on a little bit earlier, we'll break into it right now. So what happens is a player, it checks if he walks, it checks if he strikes out, then it's a home run, and then if it's a hit, and where is it? Well, not if it's a hit. That's on the strikeout. And then it checks where the hit is and if the player gets on base, right? So with power being third in the order, if you don't have either good Ks If you just don't have the good KOs, you're not going to get to the power. So this card is very low avoid KOs, not really going to hit the home runs, and doesn't really have anything great else going for it either. So this is going to be the low on the Bendex score for tonight. I do want to point out that pitching Bendex and hitting Bendex are not comparable. So you saw that Gio Gonzalez was a 70 as a pitcher. They don't line up at all. So just a note.
So this is our low watermark for the stream tonight, 53 on the Bendex for Griffey. As we move on to Mark Grace. Mark Grace, ladies and gentlemen. Who didn't love seeing another Mark Grace? Now, I know Mark Grace had a nice little warm, cozy corner in the gold tournament meta last year. I really wanted to see him grab that same corner this year. I kind of would have preferred that the card was a little bit understated and moved down to silver, or overstated and more at the high end of the gold, because I'm left wanting a little bit here looking at the profile. First things first, Mark Grace was a wizard defensively, so the crime against humanity that Chris Jardine is pulling, rocking a 31 range, a 47 error, an embarrassingly bad arm, and horrible double play on my man Mark, is something for another day. But offensively, I wanted more. You always want more for your guys, but 84 on the contact, 88 on the avoid. The eye only being 73. Tell me, am I overreacting here on Mark Grace?
I think this card's pretty good as a gold first baseman. I think he clocks out very well for that. It's funny, a lot of people are talking about this, and I agree too. I want a low gold tournament now. I think that'd be really fun, and I think this card would destroy in it. He's pretty good hitter overall. I have him at a 68, so I'm not sure. We had one earlier that was off. I don't know why he's a 61 there, but I think Oh, I see what happened. Yeah, so he's a 68 actually, and I think he hits pretty well, especially if he right. So I think he could see some play early on for sure.
So a 68 on the Bendex. Do not get confused by the typo here saying 61, so a little bit stronger than that. And I just threw up the 89 Don Russ version of Grace, just so that we could all enjoy that gorgeous smile. My sister was obsessed with Mark Grace for pretty much her entire childhood, and I got to say, I can't blame her.
Yep. Sorry. I know you love Mark Grace, man. It's great he got a card. I got some fun ones tonight, too, for myself, so I'm excited, dude.
All right, moving on. We've got Al Brazel, an extreme ground ball left-hand starting pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm a little upset that we're recognizing them still as a team in Major League Baseball, but I guess we'll let it slide this time. A pretty balanced card. No huge deficiencies. None of these ratings sink down into the 60s, but also not really extremely statted here. The stuff doesn't jump. Movement doesn't pop off the page. What do you think about a very balanced card like Al Brazel being able to fit into a gold meta?
It's not bad. I was really surprised when I saw what this card came out as, and I think it's okay. I think kind of being balanced overall, it's actually pretty well done overall. For a perfect team 22, what we see in stats being an 80, 70, 70 is actually kind of high. So he's also running an extreme ground ball profile. You and I were talking about this earlier, that we think there's going to be a resurgence to extreme ground ball profile being the best option this year. And so I just think this is going to be a really good, solid option. Probably for a little bit, it'll probably be outclassed and tossed up, but this comes in at a 71, just below Denny Neagle. So I think he's good.
So let's talk about what you mentioned there a second ago about the ground ball, fly ball tendency and one being preferable to another. So in PT 21, when all was said and done, the extreme fly ball profile was the very best from a BABIP perspective, meaning that profile, when balls were hit in play and not over the fence, batters would have their lowest batting average when the pitcher was an extreme fly ball profile. There weren't a ton of them in the game. Yusmeiro Petit is one that comes to mind as an arm that always overperformed in bronze because of that profile. Now, is that because of how the game is, Or is that because of the defensive options that were within the game? That it was just easier to max out or max min your outfield defense and catch those fly balls than it was to have something similar in the infield. So one of the things that bears watching is whether we see that trend continue and see extreme fly ball to be preferable, or if we swing back to what you've talked about, the PT20 meta, where extreme ground ball was actually preferable and you were able to observe low BABIPs with that profile.
Yeah, and as my boy Sip and Me points out, knuckleball also affects BABIP, which is something interesting that a lot of people don't touch on a lot. But definitely, I think extreme ground ball is going to come back this year. We have a lot more limited options with the training changes, and it seems like outfielders' range and just defensive capabilities is a lot lower than it was in 21 so far.
71 on the Bendex on this one, a little higher than I was expecting. So maybe this one overperforms a bit as we wait to see how the extreme ground ball profile plays out. Next, we've got John Jaha, as we are apparently recognizing the Milwaukee Brewers franchise as well. I have no doubt Walnut is behind that. But with this card, we've got a first base with really a DH level defense on it. It's a right-handed hitter, and so he's going to need to be able to hit a ton, especially against right-handed pitching. And I'm not sure that this profile is going to do enough of that when there's enough left-handed options in the game that could do that instead of him. And if that is the case, then we're really just looking at a short side platoon. And by short side platoon, I mean a platoon that is used less frequently. There are less left-handed starting pitchers than there are right-handed starting pitchers, so your versus right batting lineup is getting used more frequently. So if he's on the short side of that platoon, he's not getting nearly as many plate appearances, he's not having nearly as much impact. And so you really have to ask yourself if the juice is worth the squeeze to platoon your first base position if you're not getting a ton of VL production out of it. What do you think of Jaha?
Not a big fan. I think this card is kind of what the Bobby Abreu did, but the Bobby Abreu is a bit better because it's a really low avoid K card, and Bobby Abreu is just super high on the BABIP and super high in the gap, and so he's going to hit a lot of doubles. This card might hit a few more home runs, but he's just going to strike out so much.
Yeah, and I've seen some people throwing a little shade at the legibility of this this card art. This might be the best card art in the game.
Oh, without a doubt. I love it.
This might be the best card art in the game. Now, I can't remember exactly which year this is most closely resembling of the actual baseball cards. I want to say it was 90 Don Russ, was it? But I know it was the year that Juan Gonzalez had the error card where they had mirrored his photo to make him appear as a left-handed batter, and that was always a card that I wanted, and I think Walnut even got that card. But anyways, like this card art here is fantastic, and just look at it for an extra second. You'll be able to read it. But I absolutely love it. Props to Daniel Wallner. Round of applause for him.
I love what Daniel Wallner did this year. I think he did a fantastic job. I think we were a little overcritical when we first saw some of the art, but getting to see it in the game and seeing it in perfect draft is really, I love it. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, Frank Bama confirming it was 1990 Don Russ. And the card on the Don Russ ones were a bold red, whereas this is blue, and I think there's other oranges in the game. But I remember collecting those cards and loving them. I think Sammy Sosa's rookie card might have been then, that or 89. All right, moving on. 62 Bendex on the Jaha. Now we get Doc Ellis. And before I knock card art, which I definitely am not going to knock card art because I love DishNet's wood paneling that has made it into this card art here. This is some of my favorite art. We saw it on the Brooks Robinson card earlier, so it's fantastic. However, Daniel Wallner had a really tough act to follow with what he gave us in PT21. And I'm flashing up the card art for that card right now. The psychedelic, one-of-a-kind Doc Ellis that had no rival, as it's one of the best, if not arguably the best card art in PT21. So while I love DishNet's choice of walling here, I definitely long for PT21 Doc Ellis. But that says nothing to how good he's going to be in games. What do you think of how well this card plays?
Not good. He's understated for a gold, I think, frankly. He's got a very low Bendex here for pitchers. Just low control, low movement, and not super high stuff to compensate. Really weirdly an extreme ground ball profile with not a ton of movement for a gold card. But overall, I don't think is too good.
61 on the Bendex, so on the lower end of what we've seen tonight. Moving on, we've got Gene Segura. And this is a card that, to me, as I was looking at it for the first time, was kind of like a speedboat, where I'm looking at it, I'm taking my first blush opinion on what I'm seeing, and I'd start to get excited, and then all of a sudden I'd let off the gas, and you know how when you're on a boat, you let off the gas, you lurch forward. You kind of are shaken and shaken out of that euphoria that you were experiencing. And the first shake happens as you look at the fact that this is a reverse splits card. This is a right-handed batter that is significantly better against right-hand pitching. And you might think, well, that's cool. You know, there's more right-hand pitching in the game, but right-hand pitchers are going to be better against him as well. And so when this is not a card that you want to platoon, because that versus left profile is really soft. And so this card is going to have to be better than the left-hand hitting options at the same positions. And so the positions is really where the second lurch forward happened, the second speedboat letting off the gas happened, as this card is really bad defensively. So it only comes with stock defense at second base and shortstop, two positions of extreme defensive importance, and he's got terrible range. He's got terrible arms. He's got terrible turn double play. So it's a card where I'd prefer the versus right and versus left profiles be swapped so that I could at least be excited about him cleaning up against some left-hand pitching. And it's a card that really you can't really put in the middle of your diamond. So with Gene Segura, it's a card that I feel like at first blush looks good, but upon further investigation only falls apart. What do you think?
It's you absolutely nailed it. It's a shame because he has what looks like a really nice right-handed versus right-handed profile, and he's really fast. But the problem is, not being a lefty, he's going to get the strong side of those right-handed pitcher splits, and he's going to very underperform compared to what he could do. So I agree. Not really a super big fan of reverse split hitters. I would prefer to see a neutral split on him, maybe, or just hit left-handed. Lol.
I do love the card art on this one too, the 2010s, which is Ben's generation. It's a pretty nice card art coming out of them. Bendex of 65 on this one. We move forward. We get Carl Hubble. And so when I saw this Carl Hubble card, I was thinking that we were getting something resembling the Hubble that stuck around as a meta pitcher in PT21 for so long. A reverse splits screwballer that is a great starting pitcher option because it's so good against right-handed batters, which counteracts people's tendency to platoon. And so it was to my surprise as I looked at the ratings here and I see traditional splits. So the versus left stuff is 8 better, the versus left movement 2 better, versus left control 4 better, which is not the best way to have a starting pitcher card be ultra productive. So you're going to need those stats to be pretty heavy there. And in this game, where we're seeing a return to power in some of the early stats that are coming out, I worry that this movement might leave him too vulnerable. What do you think?
Absolutely agree. Nailed it on the head. It's really weird that, there's certainly a different adjustment to how things are calculated with the small nerf to the extremity of splits. Carl Hubble seems to have suffered because the screwball did not actually give him reverse splits this time around. For the first time I've seen a Carl Hubble. The movement is so low, I feel like he's just going to be prone to the power increases. And so I don't feel like it's going to be a really great option for you in gold tournaments or in league play.
62 on the Bendex for Hubble. Next, we've got Carlos Gonzalez, one of my favorite fantasy baseball players I've ever owned, because when Cargo got going, when Cargo got hot, he carried your team all by himself. He's playing in Coors Field. He's got an incredible, or at least in real life, he had incredible BABIPs that were observed for extended periods of time. And he would just string together 3 and 4 and 5 hit games like nobody's business, go on these 2-month long tears. Just one of my favorite players to watch, especially when he was in the zone, when all he would do is scorch baseballs all around the diamond. line drives, fly balls, bomb home runs. Just an incredible pleasure to watch. But this particular card here looks a little sneaky bird-like. Do you see that bird poking out there, Kidneys?
I see it. It's certainly there.
It's a baby bird. I don't know if I gave it. I didn't even put a bird on here because it is such a baby bird with the contact being so high at 85. But it does carry stock defense at all three positions. So if this were a backup for you, you could have him be an in a pinch option in center field to back up your center fielders, giving you pretty decent defense and right, 62 range in a corner. Nothing to call home about, but a 64 overall position rating. Not horrible. It's definitely a card you would want to platoon. However, we really need to be thinking about the power to contact relationship here.
Absolutely, the power to contact relationship. So when I said earlier that contact is BABIP plus avoid KOs and plus power, what happens is when you have that much power, it lowers your BABIP if you run the math on it. So what this means is a card that's this heavy power and this low avoid K will have an okay BABIP, but really he's not going to have that super high BABIP that you want to see. So I'm a little low on this card. I think he's too weak to be played in a platoon. Maybe you squeeze him into your lineup early on as throw him in right field and you're okay with the bad defense, but this is certainly not a card that's going to stick around.
65 on the Bendex as we move on to Roy Campanella. So I talked about Roy earlier on the stream. He was absolutely a meta in PT21, still being played frequently to this day, oftentimes in a pairing with Ivan Rodriguez. But this card is very different. It's a far cry from the meta perfect Roy Campanella face of the franchise we saw last game and this 93 special edition here. The most notable difference coming in the form of catcher ability. Now, earlier on this stream, we talked about how important catcher ability is to maximizing the efficacy of your pitchers, and this is coming in as a diamond-rated card with only 62 on the catcher ability. What do you think of this Roy card?
Man lost 40 catcher ability over 7 overall. That's a rough one. I can get an F in the chat for that. I'm not a fan of this one. He grades out as one of my lowest hitters tonight. I love Roy Campanella, his fantastic career of a player, but just way too low V right to compete. And then the catcher ability loss just makes him not competitive as a catcher, I think.
Yeah, and for anyone who's just getting used to perfect team, like there's no guarantee that we don't see another Roy Campanella card at some point in this game. This is a year card, the year being 1952. There are many different types of cards within perfect team. One of them being a peak card. The peak card is almost always better than the year card. So, who says we don't get another Campanella that can be your big glove versus left platoon option later on in the cycle? But this one is not going to be it. Bendex of 57 on Roy Campanella. We move on. We've got Trevor Hoffman, and we're back into the Don Russ card art here. Don Russ 90. Gotta love it. And we've got an extremely stuff-heavy relief profile here. Also on the extreme fly ball as far as the GB FB tendency, which ended up being the most desirable in PT21. Time will tell whether that's the case this year. And so the calculus or the question you have to ask yourself is, will he use his stuff to rack up enough strikeouts to mask the challenges that he's going to have with control and movement? The movement's going to result in a higher than you desire home run rate. The control is going to result in a higher than you desire walk rate. So will the strikeouts make up for it here in the early meta? And do note that this is a 94 rated card, not a 97, not a 96, not a 99, which means that he would also be eligible for those lower diamond tournaments, which could give him additional application there. What do you think of Hoff?
I'm so on the fence. I'm so close to saying this is a good card, but I just don't think it quite makes it. I think there's a lot of super high stuff relief pitchers this year that are just a little bit better than what this card has to offer. I have him like 56 rated pitcher in the game right now. He's got a 75 Bendex, but I think he's so close to being good but I think he's just a little bit short. And we were talking earlier about Extreme Fly Ball comes back down to earth probably this year, and he's got that going for him too. And that's what kind of pushed me over the edge to saying this card wasn't going to be meta.
So, looking at the catalog of cards we've seen so far in PT22, this has to be around the top end of the stuff cycle. And so, thinking of it in that perspective, could this not generate some statistics resembling, say, a Hal Newhouser SE from PT21 or a Bob Feller from PT21 in the early going?
You should look at Aroldis Chapman and Josh Hader, who are rocking 199 stuff V left.
What?
Yes, absolutely. I'm not exaggerating. That is their actual number. So I think Aroldis Chapman is actually a meta pitcher, and I think he does what Hoffman wants to do a little bit better. So
Bendex of 75 on Hoffman as we move on to Noma. And this one is Kidney's favorite card of the stream, of the set. With that honor, I will let you bat lead off on Noma.
let's go. It's Nomar. So the reason why this is the favorite card, or my favorite card of the set, is not because he's a Red Sox, not because I think he's had some of the greatest single seasons of any middle infielder for a hitter, but because I got scammed as a kid and I'm still salty over it. I traded one of my favorite baseball cards for a Nomar Garcia Parra card because I was lied to by my friend's brother that Nomar held the record for the longest home run in Red Sox history. And for that, I am still upset about 15 years later.
Well, I'm really glad that you have such fond memories of the player, even though you got scammed out of some dollars as a kid. You know, it's not often that we both can share appreciation for Chicago Cubs legends, and I'm glad that that our stars and planets align on this one here because he was absolutely a fantastic player. As we look at the card itself, there's a lot to like here. There's a ton to like. Defensively, we've got 90 range, which is the highest range we've seen of any card on all of these SEs tonight, which suggests that this could very well play at shortstop. And at shortstop, it's got a strong position rating, 81. In addition to that, though, if and when the meta drops an option to bump him off the position, you've got fallbacks. You've got first base and third base to fall back to, with 54 and 50 respectively on those ratings. So from a glove perspective, Nomar is pretty insulated here. Shortstop today, third base tomorrow. Nothing wrong with that. And so how's the bat going to play? And the bat's going to play well. The bat's going to play well both ways with almost a completely neutral set of backup card ratings here. So I really like this card. I think it's going to be one that is pretty sticky in lineups as teams are working their way up the ladder. I think it's going to take a lot of teams a long time to find someone that bumps Nomar out of their starting lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is your shortstop early meta.
Attention,
right?
it's meta.
You get the division done. You get Nomar. You put him in your lineup as your shortstop. And when you get a better one, you slide him to third base. Then when you get a third baseman, you slide him to first base. He's got a fantastic bat, top of the line defense for third and first base. And I think this is just going to be a really, really solid card option for a very long time. So I love this card.
You know, maybe this is setting up to be a component of an early meta righty cheese build as you're talking about moving him around that lineup.
Absolutely. I think early meta righty cheese to punish the early meta lefty cheese meta is where it's at.
So 70 on Nomar on the Bendex as we move on to Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander's kind of splitty here. So we've got some pretty significant deltas between his versus right profile and his versus left profile. We're talking about 12 stuff, 3 movement, and 2 control. We do have the fly ball designation, but it overall seems like a pretty strong profile. The control is solid. The stuff is higher than most of what we've seen tonight. It's not a perfect card, so it will qualify for those diamond level tournaments. What do you think of JV?
Man, I've used the term understated card a lot tonight to describe what I'm seeing. This is one of the cases I think a card maybe is overstated almost. This is really high on my list. I love him. I think this is going to be a good pitcher for quite some time.
Attention, it's
number
meta.
10 overall, 83 on the Bendex, our second highest pitcher tonight. I'm really into this card.
83. So this one probably will resemble some of those SEs, those live SEs that we saw being very sticky to teams as they were working their way up the ladder. Eddie Plank being a good example of one of those. Moving on, we've got Mark Langston. We return to the Donruss 90 card art here for another delightful rendition. And we have a card that is basically a left-handed version of Verlander if you nuke up the stuff and take down the control. And he's got traditional splits here, although they're not too significant. So this is a card that I could actually see playing in an early rotation and then in a later on bullpen. What do you think of Langston?
It is a left-handed, I just had this epiphany now, it's a left-handed Trevor Hoffman with a little bit more stuff, a little bit more movement, and 80 more stamina. I think it's good, actually. I have him around 27 for pitcher, but he's maybe 10 for starting pitcher right now. I think this thing is going to be one of those lower tier live SC rewards we saw last year, kind of like the Eddie Plank you referenced, where you rotate him out of your lineup pretty soon, but he can play for you for quite a while if you need him to.
Yeah, a card like this slides into a bullpen role, whether it's a setup guy, a specialist, a middle reliever, and in that role is going to have an opportunity to face around 50 to 55% left-handed batters. And in that context and in that role, it's going to have a lot more success than it will as a starting pitcher going 5+ innings and facing a lineup of 6+ right-handed batters where you have an opportunity for the softer end of the backup card ratings here to play more frequently.
Absolutely. So, I think this is one you move over.
Attention,
you move
it's
to the
meta.
bullpen later. It sits there with Hoffman for a bit until you get some upgrades, but he'll be a fine play for now.
So we're hitting it with the meta tag on Langston as well, and we see a Bendex rating of 79 here, so slightly lower than the 83 that Justin Verlander brought out, but 79 still one of the better pitchers in the game today. We move on. Terry Pendleton of the Atlanta Braves, a switch hitter. I love me some switch hitters because pitchers never get their advantage. When a righty comes up, he bats lefty. When a lefty comes up, he bats righty. And so from a pitcher backup card perspective, he's never facing the strong side, never really up against it from that perspective. However, as we look at this card, we're going to want to make sure that this card can hit because we've seen some cards that can pick it at third base tonight, and this one's only coming in with 72 on the range. Now it's got an ultra strong arm to counterbalance that. We'll have to see how important arm ends up being in some of the early defensive statistics. And then over on the bat side of things, I just wonder for a 99 rated card that's going to be in main league play, is this enough?
No. We have a lot of options, I think, at third base right now in the meta. If we're talking end game, right? If we're talking you're putting in money day one, you're going for the big cards. This is not your big third baseman. Is this going to be the third baseman you probably play as a cheaper thing to fill in the gap because he's a switch hitter, because he has good defense? I think arm's probably very impactful still at third base. It was really good last cycle. It's probably better now. Yeah, you'll play him. But will he be endgame? I don't think he's endgame already, so I see him just being a little bit outclassed is all.
So Nomar or Terry P at third base?
Absolutely Nomar. Not even a question to me.
Now, Terry's going to have much better defense because of the training limitations put on Nomar, but I do think that Nomar's going to hit more.
I think Nomar hits better, and I think Nomar probably trains up above that 50 at third base as well. So maybe if he can get to, what's his shortstop rating? It's an 80. He could probably get to a 60 at third base. I think he hangs in there.
68 on the Bendex for Terry Pendleton as we move on to Hack Wilson. Chicago Cubs topper for the NL Central. What an honor. What do you think of Hack Wilson?
46 BABIP doesn't play.
46 what?
BABIP.
Yeah, that's the problem. We've got a bird profile here on this Hack Wilson. Power is our dominant trait. As we look at the versus right profile, that contact is low, the power is high, the avoid case is kind of low. It's just going to be a tough profile to make work. I do think versus left, this card would likely make some hay in an entry pool or a rookie league, hit a bunch of homers, walk a bunch, be someone that can drive some perfect points for you. But I don't think this card's going to be one that sticks around a very long time as a corner outfielder.
Yeah, this is a good card for very low-level league play, but outside of low-level league play, I just don't think it's sustainable to play with that really low BABIP. I mean, it's a 44 BABIP V, right? The contact is just way too low with the high power. So I don't think this is good enough, even though it does have a high Bendex rating just because it's got a lot of stats on it. I just don't think the profile plays.
So here's the thing. If this card plays, if we're entirely wrong on this, and this card can thrive despite its very low BABIP, then that will be pretty revealing about the changes that have been made to the engine year over year. So
if this card thrives, I shave my head again. It's not happening.
Heard it here first. What's your definition of thriving?
If this card is like a meta card when we hit diamond, nah, not happening.
All right, we'll have to keep an eye on it, and then we will hold kidneys to the feet to the fire. If this card is hanging around in diamond and hitting, bye hair. Next card, Don Sutton, fly ball pitcher. And this one is coming to us of the low movement variety, but pretty solid stuff, pretty solid control. I want to say, though, I prefer other cards that we've seen on this stream to him to this point, though. What about you?
Yeah, absolutely. He's just a little bit worse than the Verlander, but I still think he's good. I just don't think we have that great starting pitching options, and it's not a terrible statted card. It's like -2 movement, -2 control for one stuff, so it's really, really close to that Verlander, coming in 2 lower on the Bendex. I think it's going to be a card you play for quite a bit in your rotation until you get some better options.
Yeah, and if we're being clear, if this year resembles last year at all, so many of these pitchers are going to be littered across rotations and bullpens as teams climb up the ladder. Last year, I want to say it was standard to see a live SE rotation all the way into Diamond. And then at Diamond is when you typically saw people start swapping out for other options, going with your Addy Joss, going with your different mid and low Diamond options there that could bump an Eddie Plank to your reserves. Moving on, we've got Alan Trammell, and we've got our first 100 card. And Alan Trammell is an interesting one. Now, this one does come, and someone pointed this out earlier, with better defense than Nomar. So I want to say Nomar's range was 82, if I'm remembering correctly, and this one comes in at 84 with off-the-charts turn double play, really solid infield error, little light on the arm. But I think it can play through that. And then from a hitting perspective, you've got some really interesting looking shapes here. Now, the versus left is obviously way better than the versus right here. But the versus right is not necessarily a train wreck, as you've got decent contact and decent avoid. How playable do you think this Trammell card is?
So, slight correction. Nomar has more range. Nomar has 6 more range. It's a 90. The difference is Nomar has 30 less error and 35 less turn double play. So he's probably a better fielder than Nomar. However, the V left bat on this card is insane. I have it as the second best V left bat in the entire game right now, with a whopping 88 Bendex V left. It's crazy. I think this card is going to be a mainstay for shortstop. If you can get him, this probably almost pushes the Nomar over. I don't know if I think he's a little bit too good to platoon this early in the game, but I think this card is going to be absolutely fantastic against those left-handed stacking teams.
It kind of reminds me of early meta Barry Larkin last year. Now, Barry had better defensive ratings, but was kind of built like this, was a VL profile that just absolutely mashed, a VR profile that you didn't absolutely love, but the defense made you put him out there along with the base running. So it's kind of a modified version of that card. I think it's definitely got a lot of utility, and having a shortstop that can go out there and hit like this versus left on those 25-30% of the time you're facing a left-handed starting pitcher is extremely valuable.
I think A few notes on this card. The difference between it and Larkin is Larkin had like a 50 BABIP, and this card rocks in at a 72, so it's doing pretty well because of that lower power. Then a second note, this card, even if he's not your shortstop, is your designated hitter V left. Unless you're pumping out the money to get somebody, who do I have number 1 V left? It's Barry Larkin, of all people. Unless you're pumping out money to get Barry Larkin, the perfect card. This card's going to be way cheaper.
Attention,
your
it's
designated
meta.
hitter V left, so I think this is a fantastic card. It's probably going to be in the meta for quite some bit.
So that is Alan Trammell, 74 on the Bendex, and we move on to Enos Slaughter, my favorite card of the set, and I feel just disgusting with myself selecting my favorite card as a St. Louis Cardinal. It'll take a long time to wash off this shame, but this card is just awesome. This card is absolutely going to mash versus right-hand pitching, and look at the defense. This card isn't going anywhere. What card is going to bump this from the meta? This card is going to be able to play right or left field for you and be a strong side platoon bat at worst and absolutely crush it in that role. As we look at our sim score table, which we haven't spent a ton of time looking at or talking about tonight, look at all the green here. There's no comps for this card that can hit anywhere like this card. Its most similar cards have 5 less contact, 18 less avoid K. Like, this card is absolutely awesome, and I think it's going to be sticking around for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only one hitter in the game right now that comes anywhere near this card. And so I think this card, being that it's a live collection reward, being with that V right heavy split, being that left-handed hitter to hit those right-handed pitchers, and then like you mentioned, the stellar defense in right field, and he can even shift over to left field if you need him to. No, this card is here to stay for quite some time.
It hurts me, but it's true. 76 on the Bendex, my favorite card of the selection, which brings us to our final card. And it was the one that was the least surprising tonight because we've known of its existence for some time now. But this card is absolutely at the top of the food chain right now when it comes to pitchers. We've got a plus stuff build here, over 100 on the stuff, and plus control, approaching 100. And then on the movement, it's not extremely vulnerable there. Mid-80s on the movement. Go ahead and combine that with 111 stamina, and this Cy Young is a must-have, must-deploy card.
Absolutely. Hands down, best starting pitcher in the game. I don't think anyone's relatively close right now. This is going to be the Greg Maddux of the cycle. Whopping 90. Now remember that Justin Verlander came in at an 83. I only have one pitcher better than this card. It's a relief pitcher. This thing is a monster. It's going to be around for a long time. Got the crazy 111 stamina to go late. Good movement, amazing control, and solid stuff. Just an overall fantastic card.
90 on the Bendex. This is that dude as it comes to starting pitchers, and you definitely want to get him as soon as you can because he's going to be an anchor for your rotation for some time into this game cycle. So that is the collection series, guys. You see all of the cards on your screen now. We've got the beautiful Mark Grace at center stage as Chris Jardine can recognize greatness when he puts his hands on it. Sharing the middle with Kent Herbeck, who had that lovely highlight we shared with you guys earlier today. As we flip over to the next page, you can see the two favorite cards for myself and Kidneys coming through. The Nomar, which is actually blocked by my big head, and then the Enos Slaughter, which I'm hanging my fave on right now. So Kidneys, any parting thoughts on this collection series, what it's going to mean to the early going in this game cycle, your overall impressions of PT22? I'm going to leave it real broad and let you take it where you want to.
First off, I'm going to say we've been going for an hour and a half now. If you've made it through with us this far, please stay tuned. We're almost done, but we got something really special for you at the end of the stream, so don't miss it. I am super hype about 22. I've liked almost everything I've seen so far. It's pretty much just been what I wanted out of the game. More Perfect Team 20. I was really, really big on Perfect Team 20, and I think we've gone back more to the classic engine. more of the classic engine that we've seen before and some more realistic card ratings. So I'm really excited for that. I think there's a lot of potential in this content plan. There's no overwhelming favorite cards right now, except for maybe the Cy Young. So I'm really just overall really super hyped for the year. I'm so glad I get to come back and do this with you, DRC. It's a surreal experience to get to do it every week, and I'm so happy just to play more Perfect Team at this point, man.
Well, you are just a ball of sunshine tonight, and I'm glad that you have that positivity because I'm about to beat it out of you on OK Boomer, OK Zoomer. But I echo a lot of the sentiments that you've shared here. It's super exciting to be starting a brand new cycle. It's super exciting to have a bunch of things to unearth and discover about how this game is going to play differently than last game. We've got all new cards, all new meta, all new everything, and I am just dying for this thing to go live tomorrow, and I can really get my paws on it for the first time and see where we go from there. All right. So it only took us an hour and 47 minutes, but we have reached our 7th inning stretch. So everyone pop the back a little bit, little rotation, because we are moving on to everyone's favorite game show. Okay, Boomer. Okay, Zoomer. So, if you were with us last year, the spirit of the show was to show Kidneys stuff from the 90s. See if he could recognize it. And then him throw some Zoomer memes at me of today. This year is entirely different. This year, we will be standing for our respective decades. I will be defending the honor of the 1990s. Kidneys will be doing his best to stand up for the 2010s. And we are going to tackle a number of topics for you this season. And I am going to rack up countless W's. And I can't wait to get started right here. Now, what we're going to do tonight is we are going to do baseball movies. And so we get started tonight with me arguing on behalf of The Sandlot and Kidneys arguing on behalf of Moneyball. And so the way this is going to work is that I have an opportunity for 30 seconds to tell you why The Sandlot is a great movie. Ben will then have 30 seconds to tell you why Moneyball is a great movie. There'll be a little bit of time for cross-exam, for poking some holes in the arguments. And then when it's done, we will have a poll to determine the winner. I'm going to go ahead and set up this poll so that when it's time, we can just click go. You guys won't have to sit there and stew as you figure out how dominant the win is. All right, so let us get started. Ben, you are my visitor. I'm the home team. You're the visitor. Do you want to go first or do you want to go second?
I'll bet first. I'm ready.
All right. So I will put 30 seconds on the clock. Go ahead.
What we have here is the story of what happens when you have a little kid's dream get crushed by the real world, okay? We have Brad Pitt, he's playing, man, I can't remember his name. Wow, that's unfortunate.
Billy Bean.
Anyway, Billy Bean, thank you. He's Billy Bean, he comes up to the majors, he gets crushed, okay? He's not ready for it. So, what we have happen here is a story of big corporations against the little guy, and the little guy coming out and winning. The Sandlot, they're afraid of a dog. It's no contest.
Strong from the Kidneys. I just gave you a round of applause. Impressive. So now let's talk a little bit about The Sandlot. So The Sandlot is an absolute classic. It's a generational story of a time gone by, when all you did all summer long was go outside and you play with your buddies. You didn't have cell phones to know where people were. You checked where the bikes were. That's how you knew what to do. This was an adventure. It had James Earl Jones. It had a big dog. It was about baseball history. We learned about who the Colossus of Clout was, who the Sultan of SWAT was, and it allowed you to dream about making it big. Every single one of us has a Benny Rodriguez that we grew up with, that we were seeing if they were going to make it on the big stage. It is time for your cross-exam, kidneys.
You know, what happens when Benny Rodriguez hits the big leagues in real life is he blows out his arm because a coach overused him in high school. It's not even a competition when you're evaluating the absolute game changer of how baseball is played today. You know, without Moneyball, without this story, without Billy Beane, the game is a totally different, it's a dark place without statistics and without our lovely Lord and Savior BABIP. So I would praise the BABIP gods and say that our movie is the greatest baseball movie of all time.
Praising the BABIP gods. Just disgusting. So, kidneys, let me tell you this. It's easy to overrate a movie that has Brad Pitt's good looks or Jonah Hill's humor in it. But what kind of baseball movie celebrates a team that lost in the division round? The first round of the playoffs, they lose. And then, you know what they do the 5 years after that? They lose more games each successive season. So if this is truly the baseball revolution you argue it is, why didn't it work for them? You just can't compare an American coming-of-age classic to a movie celebrating a loser franchise and a loser GM that culminates in him making the worst career decision of his life and not going to the Boston Red Sox.
I mean, the Boston Red Sox won an 0-4 using Moneyball, so that's my mic drop.
All right, polls going up. You've got 2 minutes to decide who did it better. Kidneys, how do you feel your performance was?
Weak. I was weak. I need to be stronger. Don't vote for me. He killed me. He killed the A's. I think API's rolling somewhere in his grave. Same with Meme Lord. They're dead.
Yeah, I'll say that I apologized to API before tonight.
I think my movie's far better. I think my argument was way worse. I'll give this one to you for sure.
So we are determining now who the winner is, and we've had Mr. Swecky Ox, our memer extraordinaire, put together some movie posters. So you are voting for DRC on the left or Moneyball Ben on the right. I think we've got another 30 seconds or so, and then we are in the clubhouse with it, and I have got a commanding lead, 68-32 right now. You're going to have to find 19 votes in the next minute or so. I will say that I did really enjoy the movie Moneyball.
I absolutely think Moneyball is the greatest baseball film, and I think it's a really cool story. And for me, it absolutely changed my life, my perspective on on-base percentage, and how to accurately evaluate hitters' performance. So this is why I'm here today, is mainly because of Moneyball. I would attribute that to.
I have to ask you a sobering question, and I'm almost scared of the answer. Have you seen The Sandlot?
Yes, absolutely. I've seen it a few times.
Okay. I mean, the library of great movies you have not seen is extraordinarily long, and I worried that we were treacherously reaching out into that.
Yeah, not that far. I've seen baseball history, so.
All right, we are pulling into the station here, and we are going to call this one on behalf of the DRC, on behalf of The Sandlot. So by a total of 47 votes to 21 votes, I take the inaugural edition, which I'm very happy about, as I did a ton more prep than Kidneys did because I had to start off with a bang here. But we will be back next week. We will be arguing over something different. If you have an idea about what we should argue about, go into my Discord, go into my DMs, and tell us. We are wanting for ideas. We are wanting for combatants, and hope that you guys enjoy this new segment part of the program. And with that, we conclude. Okay, Boomer. Okay, Zoomer.
As I told DRC, I would say, who won? Who's next? You decide.
There's not enough energy behind that. It's got to be like, who won? Who's next?
Who's next?
You decide. All right.
Something battle out of the park.
Oh no! It's time for the big reveal. It is time for the big, and I promise we're going to be done with you guys. We're going to try to get you out of here right around 2 hours, which is 4 minutes from now. So I will set up a drum roll, and I will hand the microphone to Mr. Kidneys. What is the big reveal?
I'm just going to post the link in the chat real quick. Thank you. I'm going to read something I've wrote. Well, you guys can click on that and do whatever. So, yeah, I hear my Discord DMs blowing up right now. Welcome to the Out of the Park Perfect Team 22 Community Database launch. Here's what's new. All the rankings for cards you've seen tonight are live on the database. We have a new measurement of a card's overall value called the Bendex. If you haven't figured it out, I'm Ben. Completely list the card ratings, including hard BABIP numbers. These are not calculations. These are the actual in-game BABIP numbers. The document I was provided with these and everything else is on the sheet unedited. It has all the cards. Oh, there's 50 plus people viewing my sheet. It has all the cards in the entire game as of right now on it, except for the special edition cards, but those are on the sheet elsewhere. You can grab those, okay? What to expect. Pitching ratings. I have put an absurd amount of time into this. I mean, over 100 hours. I have no life. And I'm very confident they accurately represent the potential power of a card. It's something very cool I've come up with that seems to really accurately work. So if you have questions about it, anything, please DM me on Discord, or I'll be hanging out in DRC's Discord after the stream in voice chat. Hitting ratings are more of a kind of happened moment when I stumbled into something really cool after a lot of trial and error. I'm not super sure on these, but I wanted to throw them out anyway because my confidence levels mathematically are good, okay? As we hit Gold Plus League, I will start to run regressions, and if they look accurate, we're going to go back to the old prediction engine, for at least for hitting, that we had in Out of the Park 21, okay? Pitching may or may not change. It depends on how the new format shows out and how I can accurately observe the game. I made a whole document on observing the game for pitching. It's a little complicated, okay? What this means for you, if you model or if anybody needs a raw pull of cards in the game at launch, just download it off the sheet. I have the entire thing right now, okay? The only thing that does not work is ground ball percent is broken, okay? So don't ask why ground ball percent is weird. It just doesn't. It wasn't exported right, okay? Do not expect the same level of precision this had in 21. This is an experimental era, okay? It's a little different, all right? We're a month 2 into the season. After we acquire some data, we're going to change things up. But honestly, guys, I'm really just excited. I'm honored to be able to bring this back to you guys. I'm really blessed to get this chance and to get some hard numbers for BABIPs and stuff like that. I didn't think I'd be doing this again this year, but I'm back. So I'm really happy to bring this to you guys to help you all out. I couldn't do this without all of your support, so thank you. You guys are incredible. Your support for me has been so great. So much love. Your kidneys.
Standing ovation for Ben. Tons of work, tons of dedication, tons of generosity to make that public. A decision that is certainly unpopular for some people. So everyone owes Ben a drink or two. All right, so what now? What do we do now? We've told you about how good these cards are. We've told you, we've now linked you to the database of all the cards in the game, so you can start doing some exploration. Well, right now it is time to dig in. And by dig in, I mean get in there tomorrow. Start joining some tourneys. Start looking at tourney data. Start looking at your main league data once you're placed in there. Even look at some entry pool data. Look at Kidney's spreadsheet. Spend an hour. Tinker around in there. Build some teams that you want to build towards. And then get in that auction house and mix it up. There's no better time to start executing your plan than day one. And day one is tomorrow. Secondly, stay connected. If you're new, if this is the first time you've seen an Out of the Park stream and you're saying to yourself, oh my God, what am I doing on a stream for now 3 consecutive hours between Chris and this? First, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us and watching the stream. Secondly, make a habit of it. There is no better way to learn the nuances of this game than to be active on the Discord in the roster and strategy channels, then to join private discords like the one that I've linked in the chat. Kidneys has a Discord. Anchored Unicorn has a Discord. I think Yuka's got a Discord. There's plenty of opportunities to join ranks with the community and accelerate your understanding of the game. Do that. Watch the streams that are on the Out of the Park channel. Watch the streams that are on private channels. There's a link that Chris has been floating around that you can click it at any time and see if anyone is streaming Perfect Team 22. Bookmark that and check it out. And have a plan. Don't just rip packs. Don't just log in once a day and expect things to fall into place for you. Figure out what you're doing and then go try to do it. Kidneys, what would you add?
A lot of questions. I can't keep up with everything in the chat, though. I'm trying to seriously just DM me on Discord. I'll answer any questions you have about the sheet or literally anything going on. And I'm going to be, like I said, in DRC's Discord, in the voice chat to answer all the questions you may have. I am so pumped up about Perfect Team 22. All this stuff on the screen is excellent stuff. Get involved, get connected. There is a fantastic community. Talk to people, ask questions, learn. There is so much to figure out in this game and so much yet to do. I'm just so excited. I keep saying that, but I really am. I'm super pumped up for this year in Perfect Team.
All right, so there is one final opportunity to walk away with a allotment of perfect points, and that is to enter exclamation point ticket in the chat. If you've made it this long, you are a marathoner. We are very impressed, and one of you will walk away with 10,000 perfect points, exclamation point ticket. I'm going to let it run for another minute, and then we're going to pick our one winner. And the reason we only have one winner tonight is that we've already decorated a couple people earlier, and we did so via scavenger hunt. We had a Moises Alou scavenger hunt, and we had a Denny Nagel scavenger hunt, and just coincidentally, both of those scavenger hunts had some tie-ins to the Cubs, which is odd. We'll see if that's a trend going forward. All right, last chance to join exclamation point ticket. I'll give you 3, 2, 1 seconds, and we are closing it down. Here's our one winner for tonight, and that winner is Hero Driver 68. Congratulations. That's a name that I recognize from last year. Definitely not a first-time winner. Please DM me on Discord with your Perfect Team username with the appropriate capitalization, and we will have those perfect points on their way to you at first opportunity. Boom. We did it. We made it, guys. I will play us off with the lounge music that was a staple of DRC streams in PT21. That'll be how we close things down. We've got some new sounds and audio that will set us up to this point, but this will always be our staple send-off. And as I send you off, I don't know that I need to repeat too much of what we've already said. Kidneys and I are both super excited. You should be excited too. If there's anybody out there that this is your first time doing it, you're going to have an absolute blast. If last year you played and this year you're looking to do some things different, you're going to have a blast as well. I think that for so many people, PT21 was a learning experience, and PT22 is something that they are attacking with a much more fully formulated plan, and I can't wait to see what impact that has on the overall mechanisms of the auction house, of the collections, of the lineups that we see, of the ladder structure as it comes together. But have fun, be good, do well out there with your team. If this was your first stream, or if this wasn't and you appreciated it, all support is extremely appreciated. We had wait till next year MacJack's API gifting subs in the chat. That's all I can see on my little screen here. I know others did it as well. I appreciate anyone subscribing with their own account or gifting subscriptions to others. The chat was flying tonight, so I didn't even see if people were throwing bits around. If they were, thank you very much. We appreciate the support. This stream's only possible with the love that you guys send to us, and we are so extremely appreciative for it, and it'll keep us rocking all year long. Kidneys, final word goes to you, my friend.
Whew. This is going to be a long night. It's going to be a long week probably for me trying to make sure everything works properly, but hey, that's what we're here for. I'm here because I enjoy helping other people learn. You're a great compliment, to what I can do, and you love teaching people as well, and you're a fantastic caster, and this has just been a great setup for what I think is going to be an excellent year for the two of us doing this. So
You're not
thank you
so
all for
bad
making
yourself,
that
Kidneys. Mr. Humble, Mr. Appreciative. He's just so warm and fuzzy tonight. Well, we'll see if that continues. Ben can get a little sour sometimes when the cards don't come out just how he wants. But for anyone interested, if you didn't join the Discord earlier when we advertised it, you can join it now. I will put it in the chat. Kidneys and I are going to be in there. We're going to be in a voice channel, and we are going to be chatting for at least a good bit here. It's already 11 p.m. local for me. I think midnight local for Kidneys. But we'd love to meet anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to talk to us in the past, hear any questions that you have, hear any feedback about the show, and just hear how amped and excited you are for PT22. With that being said, we will go ahead and wrap it here, and we will see you guys next week.